Hello, everybody. Half a day from the Northern Mariana Islands. My name's Roberto. Thank you for allowing me this space to share. This is called Island of Memories. Do you want to go for a drive? The warm rain and wind all morning finally eased as the afternoon heat started drawing all the water off the plants and asphalt into the air. The plan was to drive north across Tinian to find Hanambobu, a spring flowing out of the rock from underneath the ocean when the tide is low enough, boiling water. Sinahi hops up into Auntie Cat's sleek forerunner, Tano sliding behind the wheel. Her mom's car has a higher suspension, which they'll need to get down the white coral road to the beach where the spring is. Pulling out onto the main stretch of paved road, it's a straight line up a plateau toward North Field. North Field, a name left over. A maze, yet every road is a miles-long, straight airstrip where fighter planes, outfitted in the 1940s most advanced weapon technology, once swarmed around the deafening beehive that was the epicenter of World War II's Pacific Theater. Dense, low jungle lines every airstrip now, enshrouding every rusting war relic, littered with grenades, missiles, every manifestation of projectile and bomb-proof bunker, centuries of ancient peoples, decades of religious and imperialist colonization, Spain, Germany, Japan, and finally the United States of America. To think they'd left just as soon as they'd claimed the launch site for the event that forever changed the history of war and diplomacy. They turn off the old airstrip toward the coast onto a coral road, even more deeply consumed by the jungle. Bright green leaves of swordgrass and slim, woody trunks of tangan woven together in flowering vines stretch above the forerunner before bending over their path, nearly consuming the car as they brush against both sides of it. Interspersed papaya trees, heavy with green bulbs, occasionally break through the thick of the forest as our ride rocks all the way down until the white coral spreads out over the green leaves of beach morning glory vines, reaching out over the white sand of the shore. The ocean breaks onto the reef beyond coconut and naupaka, the beach trees waving at us. It had been years since his family left. His brothers and sisters born and raised on these tiny islands over the deepest crevice in the earth's
One thing that we can all do that might help Roberto is if we all turn our cameras off and see if that will unfreeze him.
beach. They must be moving as fast as they can. He's never seen them crawl faster or slower. Everywhere they are going is as urgent as any other. After the typhoon, the military came to this beach to clean up all the trash that washed up, says Tanu. The entire beach was beneath layers and layers of flotsam and jetsam, not just driftwood and plastic bottles. Entire tree trunks, plywood, tin roofs, and other pieces of housing that scattered across miles of ocean channel in the horrific cyclone that was Super Typhoon Yutu. Their generation had never seen anything like it. And it tore right through the island of Tinian and the southern part of Saipan. My daughter was at my mom's house. I was alone when it hit. she continues. When Sanahi's family had heard about the super typhoon from the States, all they could do was ask, "Are you okay? And what do you need?" Coverage, coverage on the super typhoon seemed to wane the further across the ocean one was from its eye. Even keeping up with the news, they had no idea. I remember I was in my tiny closet, smaller than the bathroom. I barely fit. I tied a belt to the door handle and wrapped the other end around my hand so I could hold it shut. "Oh my God," was all he could think to say. "How long did you have to stay in there?" "All night," as she recounts the terrifying hours of that night. There's a pause after almost every sentence. Sanahi's fists tighten as he imagines squeezing himself into that closet, the adrenaline of immense fear taking his breath away. I remember when the eye of the storm passed over us because it was absolutely silent all of a sudden. And that's when a lot of people made the mistake of going outside because they thought it was over. Minutes after that, the storm began again, just as chaotic as before. Rolling cars, tearing roofs off houses, uprooting the oldest trees and telephone poles, blocking roads and snapping electrical wires. "What was going through your mind while you were in that closet all night?" Sanahi asks. "I thought I was going to die that night." Thank you. I don't mean to cry every time I read, I swear.
I love that you share your tears with us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for reading that piece. Yes. And just to turn the tone a slight bit, it wouldn't be Queer Creatives without the sound of your roosters either.
I'm glad you like that because I can't do anything.
It's your own built-in soundtrack. All right, thank you again. That was truly beautiful.
Thank you all.
Okay, and next we have Sarah.
Hello.
Here you are.
Thank you so much for the space. I'm going to be reading a few poems from my new book, Anti-Muse. I'll throw the link in the chat if you're interested. We're in the last week of our Kickstarter. So I love researching poems and kind of going down Wikipedia rabbit holes. For this one, I found there are 4 names for a group of fox. It's called A Wonder or Ruin. A group of foxes is called Skulk. Follow fragrant stained memories down into the limestone quarry dark. Eyes like embers, skin like winter. Echoing, echoing, past, present, future, fast forward, breathless, reckless, summoning, banishing, hunting, running, waking, dreaming, repeating, repeating. A group of foxes is called Leash. This mischievous masquerade flows through rivers of time, untwines the fetters of fate, of gold or rust, of wonder or ruin. A group of foxes is called Earth. Even when we stumble over cobblestones, fantasy, reality, balance shift, and gravity unravels at our fingertips. A group of foxes is called Charm. For my second one, if you know what it's like to fall in love with the wrong person, you know how contradictory that feeling can be. This poem is my attempt to control it. I tied our love to a chair in the basement. but she just licks her bloody lips and smiles to the pleasure pain. She's been caught before, and she always escapes. Oh, Billy the Kid, oh, Bonnie and Clyde. Tears track down her dirty face. She'd rather fight than die. This unholy love, this saintless sacrifice, deep down is made of molten flame. Forest fire, phoenix plume. I know she sees the silvery sheen, grinning blade in moonlight. I know she knows. This time, I can't let her go. I watch black smoke billow up to the ceiling and out onyx windows. Somehow I am still standing, splintered bones peppered with holes. And the last one is a short one called Time and the Ocean. I wrote it on a rainy day in Seattle. You should know by now, I need you. Like the songbird needs the broken sunrise. Soft, sultry notes, scented floral pulsing, rainy winter days, drenched and longing. You should know by now, you belong to me, like the ocean belongs to a desperate storm. Thank you so much.
Wow, Sarah, please be sure and you did just put your link in there. Okay, it's like I want copies of those.
Yes,
Yes. Yeah, just that range you showed us from the foxes to that love we all know too well, and then that last one with the rainy day inspiration. It was great. Thank you so much. Okay, all right. Next we have Lisa.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa, and I'm nervous. I'm trying not to be. So thanks. And just to set up a little bit, this is a piece of short fiction I'm going to read from a collection that I'm working on. It's all the related stories that don't belong in my novel. I figured out how to cut them out, and now I'm making a collection of those pieces. So I have a lot of stories about these same characters and the same world, but this is just a short piece from it, and it's very kudos to Lighthouse on this, because I wrote a version of it a few years ago in a class, and then it sat with me for a long time and it felt unfinished and something was off. And so in a recent Lighthouse class, I took another run at it and I like it a lot better now. So here it is. And little theme, it's called Peonies and Foxes. The peonies grow by the garden gate. They are the last thing I look at when I leave, and they welcome me back home when I return. They are puny for months, bare stalks, gray-green. In April, the gray-green becomes streaked through with silver, and new leaves appear on the still bare stalks. AJ teases me for paying such close attention to their subtle changes. I try to find the words to tell him why I care so much, what they mean to me. They're beautiful, I say. Inadequate words. I hope he can read my mind. I think how soon they will change again, bare tight buds full of promise. Think we'll see the foxes? AJ asks on the ride to the cabin. It's a getaway. We are getting away. We see them every time, I answer, but I'm trying to convince myself. Of course we will see them. They are there. They are safe. We will see them. I like the one with the black eye best, says AJ. I like the one with the back foot that drags, I say, the wounded one. Of course you like that one. AJ rolls his eyes, but I can see he is smiling. He is looking away out the window, but his reflection is smiling. Mom, he exhales, shakes his head a little. A small patch of fog appears on the window, and I'm reminded that you can tell if someone is alive by holding a mirror to their lips and checking for breath fog. Later, the crows alert us to the foxes. They are shrieking a warning down near the creek, then across the creek and turning up the hill. Their cries follow the foxes, scold and warn them. In the fading light, we see the outlines of foxes jogging, one jump skipping over a weak hind leg. I'm gripped suddenly with fear for them. I want to keep my eyes on them, follow them until they arrive safely at their den. Instead, their outlines grow fainter and blend with the shadows. The crows fall silent, and I feel an icy jab in my chest, a tingle on my neck. AJ feels me shiver and looks at me uncomprehending. On the last day, we leave early to beat the traffic down the mountain. Loading the trunk in soft morning light, I keep my ears tuned for rustling in the tall grass and relax my peripheral vision so I can catch the smallest movements of light and color. The foxes never show themselves. A knot of worry lodges itself under my ribs. On the ride down the canyon, we scan the hillsides for wildlife and sing along to the Classic Hits radio station. It's a thing we do, AJ and I. Sing-alongs on road trips, only when alone. It's different when others join us. It's our thing. The knot in my ribcage talks to me now. It says, hold on to this, remember this, hold on. I shush it, turn the radio louder. When we get home, I will notice the peonies. Some buds will have begun to open by then, streaks of pink and white peeking out from the protective green leaves. It always seems so slow, this part of the process. The leaves uncurl little by little, pull away, reveal tender petals inside. It will go on like this for days, changing so slowly I am tempted not to watch them so closely. And then it will happen. They'll relax into a full bloom and turn their glorious silky insides out for all to see. Not yet though. Today I will point out to AJ that the bloom is approaching and he will shake his head, unseeing, laugh at my preoccupations. This is how we are, me and AJ. I notice he scoffs. I don't know how to tell him about this knot in my chest, my fears for him. I cannot think about him passing through that gate. I cannot think of the merciless world that regards him as. I cannot. Instead, I point out the peonies and watch their slow progress. Instead, I think of the limping fox and wonder that he endures. Thanks.
Lisa, that was so beautiful. And
thank you.
I know you know I'm a fan of your work. Just thank you so much for being willing to work through that nervousness and read for us. Had you not told us you were nervous, I wouldn't have known. I don't think anybody else would have. So thank you so much. And please read your comments because you need to know how great that was.
Thanks.
Gosh, okay, you all are amazing. And I love that we're getting these different animals coming up. That was not planned. So next we have Ona Marie.
Hello. It's Ona Marie, but that's okay. In the South, R-A-E is Ray for a woman that's compared to Ray for a man. Anyway, in honor of and in recognition of tomorrow's anniversary, I'll be reading from my upcoming book, Phone Call from My Mother. This is the beginning of chapter 1. Chapter 1, August 5th, 2016. My God, the day my mother died, I was out dancing. With Shakira playing, I followed Frankie onto the dance floor. Once there, she dropped my hand and began to move with the music. I watched her with greedy eyes as her hips swayed with an efficiency of effort. I was still. She began to dance around me, and the songs changed, slowing the beat. As she moved behind me, she leaned into my ear and whispered, "Close your eyes, just listen." I did. I felt the vibration of the large speakers in my shoes and the echoes of the lyrics fluttered in my chest. I dissolved into the rhymes and rhythms. My hips swayed side to side in time with the beat. Her strong hands came to rest on my hips and I just listened. One breath, one muscle at a time, I relaxed and felt the music come into me. The intrinsic joy of the music curled around life, and my feet began to move like each song danced was my gift to the world. Back around in front, Frankie's eyes crinkled as she smiled, the only thing that marked her age on this floor of youngsters. and I felt their intensity all the way into my chest. She offered a hand. My other hand found my skirt and we danced. She moved toward me, then away. I backed up, then followed. I remained focused. I was always aware of and connected to her. The parallel movement, parallel feelings, and parallel connection simulated the give and take of the entire cycle of life there in one dance. I felt my body begin to free up, and even as I was in the moment, something began to move through me. I swung my shiny blue skirt a little faster. I turned my curvaceous body a little more crisply. I rolled the melodies through my arms, beginning with my shoulders as if they were suspended from a string and vibrating all the way down to the fingers. And something rolled through me. While I never lost focus or stopped paying close attention, it was like my vision doubled. I saw Frankie, strong arms walking me forward and back, feet moving, yet still. I could dance without her, but I could not dance without her. I offered myself to her and she offered herself in return. And the music just played on. This is the freedom only dance could offer me. The evening had begun on a painful note. This monthly party that drew 1,500 women in my city to dance and drink, sing and laugh, hold and be held was always a good time. Arriving early, we only waited 5 minutes in line to pay the entry fee. I was the slowest. After looking for two tall, dark heads, one with long ebony curls and one deep brown fade, I sought out my best friend, Brianna Anderson, and my lover, Frankie de la Cruz. Catching up with them, I saw what made them pause. On the center of the front wall stood a neon letter, P, commemorating the Pulse nightclub massacre in Orlando just 2 months prior. 49 photos surrounded it, each emblazoned with a name and an age. It took me a minute. That P, the logo, burned in my mind like so many thousands of others. It rocked me back on my heels. That bar, this bar, any queer bar was a sacred space, a place set apart where we could come and be who we are when it isn't safe to go anywhere else. In the 50s and 60s, you could be killed or at least roughed up by anyone, including cops, just for being gay. In the 80s and 90s, it might have been less violent, but it was just as visceral, as we were blamed for AIDS and later HIV. And now, LGBTQ plus youth were the most substantial part of the homeless youth population, and trans women of color were routinely killed. It was all on the rise again. The bar was the safe space for LGBTQ plus folks to go, to be, to exist, until the morning hours of June 12th, 2016, at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much. I love how you were able to take your personal experiences and then also bring us into that very important history. And I really appreciate that you chose to share that particular part of your book tonight. Thank you very much. And it was just personally, it was so great to hear your writing again. So thank you for sharing. All right, our next reader is Jensen.
Hello, my name is Jensen. I live in Denver, Colorado. I'm relatively new to QC, and I don't have a book or anything like that, but I do have this love letter to TikTok. Her elbow nudged the plastic lamp next to her on the desk. It was the one for seasonal affective disorder. Her mom bought it for her soon after the sun started to abandon the world in the late afternoon to let everyone sit alone in the miserable darkness. She noticed no difference from the sad lamp's constant stream of artificial sunlight. She also didn't notice how close she was to knocking it off the table. Her attention was, as it almost always was lately, on her phone. Steadily, her thumb scrolled as blips of eager voices called from it. Hey guys, well, I'm going to show you. Stop scrolling. She didn't hate to continue to scroll through 60-second videos of roller skaters, sourdough bakers, Gen Zs dancing ironically to Phoebe Bridgers, elaborate inclusive headcanons of fan fiction earnestly shared by 20-year-olds. When the background music grabbed her attention or a woman on the screen looked pretty cute and roughly her age, she'd pause, watch the video. It had been 8 months of isolation, 8 months of this tiny studio apartment. She could feel the walls close again. The summer had been wonderful, so much better than she thought it would be given the panic of the spring. With fashionable masks bought on Etsy and the willingness to sit outside for everything, she saw her friends. The tightness in her chest she had held since March loosened just a bit. And then winter came, earlier than she'd expected. By late September, it was dark at 4 p.m. She kept having the thought, maybe I should see if my regular doctor can help me get back on antidepressants, but she'd bat it away, turned to this tiny world in her hand instead. Early on, in the beginning, she downloaded the app. Her younger sister encouraged her during a FaceTime call one day. You'll like it, it's fun. There's all these dances. Look at this one I learned to do for the Savage remix. But by the third day of using the app, she wasn't really seeing dances. There were hardly any celebrities, very few boys wearing Supreme sweatshirts, not a single red hat to be found. The algorithm had gifted her something else. No, very quickly she held in her hand a tiny portal to the queerest world she had ever been in. It felt that way, like a portal, like she held the world in her hand. She had always been so self-conscious about her own identity. When she was 24, practically ancient she had felt at the time, and told her parents she was bisexual, she downplayed it immediately. It's not a big deal, I'll just date whoever. I just like people. But she didn't date whoever, not really. Oh, sure, she went on dates with women, lots of first dates, a handful of seconds. But what she really did was continue to date straight cis men, ones who brought out all of her anxious attachment, and for what? So she could be forced to break up with herself for them? Every time. She continued to bury her queerness, whip it out like it was a party trick for other people's interest. She had all these fears, those insecurities scratching the inside of her heart, until she found her tiny portal full of eyebrow slits and girls' gays and theys, and the video. 60 seconds, now saved on her phone forever, discovered about 2 weeks into using the app. A girl with blue hair talking to the camera, chin propped in her hand. This is for my other bisexual girls. Do you ever worry you came out too old and so then you felt insecure in your inexperience? And so you kept dating men because you're worried about letting the girl down, and because now you're a burned out former gifted and talented kid and you always have the feeling that if you can't do something perfectly the first time, you don't even want to try. So you continue to date men and feel more insecure. And then you worry that maybe you're not actually queer. Maybe you're just doing this to seem more interesting, but you know you're queer and you know that your experience doesn't define your sexuality, but you still feel insecure about it. And like maybe you don't really get to have a seat at the table. Is that just me? She stared at the screen, watched as the video looped and the blue-haired girl repeated her monologue. Those words had only ever been in her head, and that mean voice she heard more often than she liked to admit to her therapist. But here she was, hearing them from someone else's mouth. How did they get there? She clicked on the comments. Oh, it's for you. This. Oh my God, I feel this every day. I promise, you belong. Wow, you didn't have to call me out like that. She lost track of time, reading those comments and watching that video on loop, seeing all those people who had felt the same as her. She felt the tension melt away. The change didn't happen overnight, but over the last 8 months, a transformation happened. It's like when she looked inside the portal, she had no desire to go back to the person she had been before she ever discovered it. She got more confident in calling herself queer. She started to wear more joggers, cuffed her jeans. She'd leave her leftover coffee in the fridge so she could make it iced no matter the weather. She thought more about queer theory, about gender and the binary, and her role in a community she was ready to be a part of. And she was happy. So happy. She didn't have to perform in front of people anymore. Like none of those thoughts and that mean little voice ever mattered. Like the world had opened to her. And that happiness carried her through the summer into the fall. It buoyed her along through the depression of the winter. She continued to scroll, elbow bumping into the side lamp again, not noticing it teetering on the edge. Even as the darkness closed in and the temperature dropped and the chemicals in her brain struggled to produce, she had the portal to bring her a little burst of joy. She paused in it now, a person wiggling on the screen. Hey, if you see this video on your For You page, the text read as the person continued to dance. The video cut away to a different angle, the person staring back at her. I don't know what to tell you, but cis people don't think about their gender this much. She stared at the phone, felt that tiny little flutter of familiarity in her stomach. Well, shit. Thank you.
Yes. Jensen, I think when your book comes out, you should do the audio recording of it. I think that would be amazing.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. And I am going to read out Sasha's comment to you because I think this is so good and so true. Sasha said, I love this. There is so much doomsaying around social media. It's so lovely to hear such a lively exploration of the many ways it can help us ease into ourselves. I just feel like you nailed that. Like TikTok as a portal. It was really great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. So this is mostly for our readers. Philip Flip was going to read, but he couldn't make it at the last minute. So our next reader is Paparuna.
Thank you. So this is something that some of you may have heard, while earlier versions of it actually did develop in QC. And I love what Lisa said, because yeah, you develop this world, and this is a story that's from the world of my book, but may or may not make it to the book. The Park of Stolen Futures. At the edge of the city in MSEC 9, there was a crumbling wall, part of the old financial district, before the fires had forced those who could flee to abandon this sector and move to higher, safer ground. Over time, as people lost their jobs and then their houses, they moved outside of the wall where a shantytown was built with the trash left over from the reconstruction of the city core. Street artists turned the wall into a mural featuring animals and plants that had gone extinct during the era of domination. Plant dyes mixed with colored industrial dust and refuse. The mural resurrected the white rhinoceros, the Baji river dolphin, the Tasmanian tiger, images from memories as crumbled and faded as the wall they were painted on. In the early evenings, when the shadows were long and the temperatures barely tolerable, children would come out and stand in front of the mural, sometimes whistling, other times whispering, often running their fingers over the rough texture of the long-gone creatures on the painted walls until darkness escorted them back to the makeshift shacks that housed their families. It took a while before the orange shirt patrols did their rounds in that sector, a shift loathed and delayed, but they noticed the small crowds lingering around the mural and quickly called for reinforcements. By evening, the area was blocked off with bright electrified tape. Heavy equipment rolled in along with crews in protective gear, and the sandblasters hummed away for hours till almost all traces of life had been erased. More crews showed up in the morning and painted the crest and motto of the Second Republic on the wall. The sun was blazing overhead, but hundreds of people gathered around to watch, restlessly and silently, till the first rock was thrown. Nobody ever took credit for it, but within minutes, the Republic work crew was crouched behind their equipment, desperately crying for backup on their radios. The riots lasted for days, longer than during the outages, longer than when they had halted ration distributions during the last famine. The URO guards were the first to be deployed, but they quickly surrendered the ground to the shantytown residents while they dominated the air with helis, rounds and rounds of them, spraying irritants and psychopacifiers while fires raged below, fueled by the acrid smoke of green cattails coated with tried river clay and manure, what Barker Lore said would neutralize the Psych-P. Only after the fifth night, when the first heli crashed in the field southeast of MSEC 9, did the orange shirts retreat, declaring their pacification a success. They saw clandestine footage that showed a sparkle of light heading to the heli before it crashed was quickly scrubbed from all the monitors. The sting of chemicals hang in the air while the official crest and motto was scrubbed with homemade lye, and by morning new murals started replacing the ones that had been erased, only richer in colors and complexities. The white rhinoceros, the Bajie River dolphin, the Tasmanian tiger, now joined by the Guam flying fox, the Pyrenean ibex, the Zanzibar leopard, along with fantastical creatures and plants. Old stories coming alive on the crumbled stone that used to house the very banks that had repossessed so many homes, that had funded so much destruction. By evening, there were benches made of scrap metal and plastics for the elders to sit, and a small stage where 3 people play their drums, accompanied by a couple of reed flutes. In the coming days, more and more animals and birds and fish and plants filled the splintered walls, along with scenes from the forbidden fairy tales and the words of forgotten poems. A group of barkers managed to bring 5 large bitter orange trees, just like the ones that line up the boulevard leading to the academy. And in the weeks that followed, these trees were grafted with other citrus varieties, lemons, limes, tangerines, grapefruits, blood oranges. The only part of the wall where a remnant of the crest of the Republic still existed was soon covered by wild berries. Other built terraces where grapes and vines offered sweetness and shade, and the mural grew vibrant, the land around it green, what people would call El Parque de Futuros Robados, the Park of Stolen Futures. Thank you. Robert, you're not the only one crying.
I feel like the 2 of you are criers. We need that. And I know that we have heard parts of that before, but what struck me today was it had this echo of that first brick being thrown at Stonewall. For some reason, that just, was that deliberate?
In an unconscious way, I think, or
Yeah.
it just, I mean, part of it was influenced by reading Kim Stanley Robinson, who I adore, but like has so much exposition. It's like, instead of just saying what bad things happened, why don't we talk about the resistance and the beauty that people create out of loss?
Great. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. G.
Hey
Are you
there.
ready?
Yeah,
All right.
I'm going to be reading 2 poems, a sad one and a hot one. And a hot one, a sad one and a nice one. So I'm going to read the sad one first. I don't want to end on a unhappy note. I'm promoting my audiobook. I just recorded my stuff. So I'll throw in the link for that. This is called The Salt in the Sea. Rosh Hashanah, those things, New York. Oh my God, the freaking lawnmower has to go on right now. Can you guys hear the lawnmower? Okay, I'm gonna keep reading. Shit. Okay. Oh, God damn it. Okay, The Salt in the Sea. Rosh Hashanah, those things, New York. I thought we could be friends, so fled with you with the Jews. We piled into my Jetta, got lost near JFK. Through dance beats, the night struck my heart just as strong as we were no longer girlfriends. I thought we could be friends. I thought we could be friends at the table filled with women with strange names like Boots and Candy, who were mistresses of the Yemeni throwing the party, while his wife stared bitterly across the linen cloth table, scarfing down her pride with cancer. I thought we could be friends, sitting through hours of rituals of wine and slicing holy bread. May it be your will, Lord our God and God of our ancestors. You interrupted to tell everyone how thrilled you were about moving back to Israel. All is holy, except us. The Zions toasted the sweet new year and wished you well as I swallowed tears. No one knew that with your words you had stabbed me twice, 3 times over and over again. I tried to hide from the pain that we were only friends sleeping together for 5 years, friends that shared your cancer at 23 years old, and I never left your side. I dismissed myself to the backyard where Staten Island waters touched the dark belly of New York City, and I stared out at the Statue of Liberty across what has become the Dead Sea, calling, freedom, freedom, freedom. Her torch obscured by windless flags, Star of David, and red, white, and blue, flanking the Yemeni's yacht. The salt of my tears was in the Atlantic as I tasted you leaving me, and I asked, who is the exile now? For I am the real Jew, this Asian girl transfused with you, who loved you more than ancestors pocketing red cells of your own blood. And for what purpose? To avoid loving idols that shouldn't be worshipped? Yet I resisted God sliding down my cheeks as I tasted sorrow parting my lips, as though they were that great, great sea. I can't hear anyone, so I don't know what's going on. This one is called 20. I love you like a blind man, touching your body for the first time, knowing your beauty by form, loving the indescribable. I love you in this blindness of my ignorance to see the one I most deserve, because the hole in my heart leaves me always empty. I picture the Grand Canyon without end to her depth, rivers that once rushed through, groped every wall of her body, loved her so completely, never to think that it would leave a barren masterpiece. This infinite emptiness I feel is the void many travel to see, yet can never touch the bedrock of its being. I cannot recognize your vastness, yet I've mapped you out like the whole of Arizona. I love you with perceptivity of a blind man feeling the difference between $1 and 20, and you are my 20.
Woohoo! Gee, I love that we got the range of those two pieces.
Yeah,
And in both of them, your detail was exquisite.
thank you.
Yeah. Please be sure and put your link in the chat.
All right.
Okay. So before I introduce our last reader, I just want to put in a very quick plug for our bonus Pride edition of Queer Creatives. And what makes it a bonus is that it is not on our usual second Friday. So please register. I would love to see all of you there. And with that, I bring you our last speaker, Laura. Laura, take us away.
Hi everyone, I'm Laura, and one of my girlfriends who's here tonight, she sent me a text that she was going to keep her video off because she was amending soil all day, except her phone auto-corrected and said she was amending soul all day. And I thought that was like the most perfect metaphor ever for how I feel about this group. So now I'll probably cry too, but I make sure that nothing else is on my calendar on these days. I come faithfully because I love the group. I love all of you, and it is amazing. I think anyone who knows me knows that I kind of struggle with the whole balance or tussle between that like banana bread baking sweet person and then the fierce warrior. So the piece I'm about to read came out of a writing prompt in our last meeting in May. The original title is called I Write Blue, Boo You, True Ya, See Me, Tell All, and Say Nothing. But now the title is simply #Garden Slayer. I'm going to be reading off my big screen, and hopefully you all will be able to catch everything. All right, here we go. #Garden Slayer. Damn, girl, you are too old to wear a skirt that short. Oh, listen here. Listen to me. Who are you to say boo, to say no, to say my leg's too strong, too wide, too full of squat and garden? So muscular, I squeeze you and you pop. Ooze. I wouldn't do that to an earthworm, but I've had it up to my azalea bush with your telling, your scolding, and only the sky will listen to your wail because I eviscerate you into cloud pellets. You are rising into white moisture, that kind that sticks on your windshield and freezes so you can't drive. Your ice scraper won't break what you've done to yourself. This hardness is something I refuse to regulate. You go your own way. I got tomato plants to get into ground. The vines are leggy like me. They need to be tied up to a stake. And don't think I'm not tempted if you give me more of your unsolicited mansplaining. I've got metal poles, I've got twine, and I'm not afraid to spread the seeds of rise up. You want to be a polecat? You want to fertilize my okra and English cucumbers? You're about to be Millie Bobby Browned onto social media, so stand down or go down with hashtag Garden Slayer. All right, done with that. I'm in a peaceable mood today. Menstrual cup there to catch the blood not in my veins, the blood not in the meal that I feed to my bulbs. Though I can't say I'm as strong as my Czech grandmother, who squished potato bugs between her fingers and shooed antique dealers who tried to get one over on her immigrant ass. Oh, she took an especial delight in sending them on down the road with their skin peeled like a bunch of apples for pie, all in one unbroken swirl that could be reformed back into an apple, but without the meat. These men and their trail of skin never did try to fleece an old woman again. I inherited her collection of thimbles and coins and tarantulas, and somewhere underneath my white skin, there is an earthy brown, like my spouse, my children, but mine isn't melanin, it's fierceness and soil. Now, you can't tell when you look at me, but I do have legs that could press a boat from Hades without paying the coin. My legs could probably churn butter and definitely could eat a marathon in a bunch of halves because they've done that already. And now I am old enough to wear a mini if I want to show how much I love my tomboy underwear. Dude, be glad I didn't just wear the tomboy underwear because that's your future. That's the future of this country. People being free when they can be, when they want to be. We aren't there yet, but some more seasons of my staking tomatoes I grew from seed or my neighbor started from seed and gifted me, well, seed spreads and so does non-binary. So does the breaking of clay and the mixing in of peat, the drinking of peaty whiskey and the eating of sharp cheese or the vegan equivalent. I won't give you beef about eating beef, but you don't get to tell me to smile when the masks come off, and you don't get to tell me when I should take my mask off either. I'm getting plenty of air. What isn't coming through my mouth and nose comes through the other orifices you can't comment upon without going to ground. And you're lucky. Remember how peaceable my mood is today. Bulbs, let's talk about bulbs. We can plant bulbs in the fall or spring. We can keep them cool in between, stashed in the ground with their greens braided and tucked, or we can dig them up and put them in hay or straw or whatever a person likes to store their bulbs in. Someplace dark and cool, usually, no social commentary there. But I would like to say that I'm not jumping through hoops because you've got a bulge in your pants or somebody likes bulbous bosoms. Maybe you, I'm guessing you. Those things are personal and our taste varies widely. I like peonies myself, and a garden that is riotous and not behaved, doesn't stay in bounds, has a diversity of heights and textures and scents and colors, and sometimes it's about the greenery or the rock garden or what draws in the wildlife and not about beauty at all. Me, I'm all about saving each and every earthworm that is bound within the deep root structure, the earthworm that must be extracted gently, so I don't tug it into multiplicity if it wishes to stretch and remain a ringed one. You might be into ladybugs or potato bugs, and if so, it's a good thing my grandma is long gone and you aren't under threat from her take no shit attitude. Personally, I don't use chemicals. I pluck out the stray grass that jumps the stripstone wall, or I leave it in because wall jumping might have its own demands. Maybe that grass wants to tuck in around my ice plant. Bindweed, I dig that out and don't begrudge it slipping back in. We aren't at war, bindweed and me. I like its flowers and all, but I can't let it choke out what and whom I love. It doesn't even mean to take plants out, but still, that doesn't mean it doesn't have an effect that has to be considered. There are consequences to gardening. A weed to you may be a rose to me, but I fear the opposite. You see my mangoes as a threat. Yes, those seeds came from the other side of the globe, and so did my family. They are thriving, sweet, so juicy you are licking your lips, but proclaiming you only like bananas. Here, I send you on your way, a whole bunch of organic bananas in hand. Find a good place to put them and be happy. Or not. I won't tell you to smile, that you look better when you aren't so sober. And get the fuck out of my business while you're at it, all right? We can shake on that if you want. Let me just slide off my gardening gloves because I don't want your pesticides to spoil the vegan leather. No, I never promised to be Snow White and the bluebirds would be dancing the jitterbug on my shoulder. Ladybugs do land on my forearms, and once a brown recluse took a bite out of me. See, here? Under my watch, there's a red patch where the skin grows back, peels, dies, grows back. I'm more speculative fiction than Disney. I'm a gardener and part-time warrior who gardens so I don't kill fascists and go to an incarcerated world that takes identities, steals privacy and all freedoms, and issues only one pair of underwear to an inmate until they can afford to buy a second pair. My tomboy underwear have saved me from a lot of fights and probably multiple nights in jail because I'm not willing to give them up. But this mini that offends your eyeballs, I could strip it off right now before your very eyes, not for your eyes, mind you, because your eyeballs can freeze in Hades, and I bet you can't get yourself across without the coin you've got to place on your tongue. Keep your tongue far from my garden, asswipe. Here there is beauty, here there is freedom, here there is plucking and life and every color and azalea bushes not dyed to match one's hair color, because here your rules don't apply.
Laura. Woo!
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for just taking us home on that one. So thank you all again for joining us for this hour. It went really quick. And I especially want to thank our readers who are so willing to put themselves and their stories out there. And thank you all for being such a great supportive group. So please don't forget to register for Queer Creatives on June 25th, and I hope to see you all there.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Jessica.
everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jessica and Paul for running this, and Roberto and Laura for first and last.
Thanks, everyone. Nice
Happy
to meet
Pride.
you.
Thank you all
Bye.
so much.
Oh, Roberta, thank you. Thank you again for going first.
I appreciate it. I'm so
Yeah,
honored.
that was amazing, Roberto.
It was.
It's been so cathartic, and I didn't even realize how much it would be. Laura, I love your peonies.
Oh, I just saw that. Nice.
Those are for Lisa. Lisa, if you're still here, got peonies just for you. So, all right,
Aw,
everyone, I will see you soon. Jessica, thank you for
Bye.
organizing this. Bye, everyone.
my
Everyone,
pleasure.
bye.
Bye.